Last night, I treated my wife like a queen. We had been going through some tough times recently, and this seemed like a good time to turn things around. I took a day off from work, ostensibly to take our two kids to soccer camp for the week, but more to make sure everything would be perfect. I started by sending Melinda 2 dozen long red roses to work. I wrote the note myself. Roses are red. My love true. My plans for tonight. They will make it more obvious to you. Dinner with me. Dessert you yourself. Second and third servings. I guarantee you. Yes, I know it's not Shakespeare, but I figured it would work. And I was right, but you knew it. I received a passionate kiss at the front door, plus a report of how jealous her co-workers were. Melinda looked at me with a lustful look. Lucky is an understatement for what your evening will be like. I immediately took the initiative into my own hands and corrected her. This evening is for you. Step 2, I prepared a hot bubble bath for my love, complete with a perfectly chilled glass of Chardonnay. I told her to take her time while I prepared dinner. It's not like I cooked. I just went to her favorite Italian place and got dinner for two. When I returned, I put it in the oven. I had just finished setting the table when I heard Melinda behind me. You're a naughty, naughty boy. I turned around and saw a vision in red. Melinda was in everything I bought today, wearing a negligee, bra and panty set, garter stockings and shoes red stilettos that screamed, "Take me." She had no idea how naughty I planned to be. Dinner and much wine later, I took her to our bedroom. She followed me willingly as I slowly undressed her along the way. I laid her on the bed and sprinkled kisses all over her body. And then, after multiple caresses, we got busy. Love. We rested for a few minutes, saying the words that lovers say. I actually did most of the talking. It was a bit incoherent. I told her over and over how much I loved her. Then I started caressing her again, and then we had sex again. I climbed into bed next to her and immediately fell asleep. I slept very soundly. I woke up early the next morning, took a shower, and left the house before she knew it. I left a note reminding her that I would have to work late to make up for the day off I had taken earlier. Oh, I definitely had work to do today. Today I, Timothy Allen Peake, am ambushing a girl of easy virtue. I looked at my watch. She should appear any minute. This girl will be my wife Melinda, the aforementioned queen of last night's lovemaking. Melinda has been cheating on me for, well, as I found out, most of the year. I was sure of this last month. I suspected 2 months before that. My suspicions were based on the little things that happen between couples, on behavior, habits, and, most importantly, on slight prevarications that hint that something is wrong. For example, there were many little things that in themselves were explained innocently, such as our sex life became much worse, while Melinda began to dress sexier. She felt it, I certainly didn't. I know there's not much to suspect. One of the main cases that caught my attention and gathered my observations into suspicion was on a weekend evening without children. Melinda met me at the restaurant, having come straight from work. Arriving, it turned out, was the key word, because Melinda had the undeniable sheen of someone who had just had great sex. It was visible in her eyes, on her face, and especially in the way she moved. That night, when I was supposed to be the lucky one, she refused sex, citing a mild thrush. I decided to find out the truth. So I started following her, monitored her time away from me, checked her laundry, and listened very, very carefully to everything she said. It's amazing how much you can hear in ordinary conversations if you really listen carefully. I have always relied on the idea that a woman will do everything possible to avoid outright lies. This doesn't mean that you will get the truth. It means that you need to really listen carefully and consider all the possible meanings of the words that are spoken. It's almost like you're playing verbal chess, so many possibilities and permutations. I was surprised by the subtle hint of disrespect that permeated our interaction. There was an undeniable disdain expressed. I seemed to have lost my former place in the hierarchy and equality of our relationship. It was also difficult to reach her at work on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Although my suspicions had turned into certainties in my mind, nothing was serious enough to warrant going to a lawyer. Then I found what I needed, actual physical proof. A pair of black lace panties. I knew the last time I saw her in those panties. I knew until the day we last had sex. The difference between the two dates indicated infidelity. As far as I was concerned, she was more guilty than innocent at that point. Facing Melinda was a little more problematic. I mean, she's been lying to me for who knows how long. I assumed she justified her betrayal with some twisted rationalization. I decided to take a simple and direct approach. I suggested another evening just for husband and wife, reminding her that she owed me. I asked her specifically to wear black lace panties. That night, as we were getting dressed, I reminded her about the panties, and she said I wouldn't be disappointed. The dinner went well. I lavished her with attention and wine. By the time we got home, Melinda was horny like I hadn't seen in years. "Take off your clothes for me." I leaned back against the head of the bed, hands behind my head. "Come on, sexy thing, show me what you've got." Melinda began to sway as if drunk, but shook her head. "Come on, Melinda, you owe me. We haven't had sex in almost a month." I waved my finger at her. "We had sex on the day of your business trip. It was only 2 weeks. 2.5 weeks. Okay, 2.5 weeks. One fact has been confirmed. Come on, sexy thing, take it off. Okay? But don't expect it to be every time you take me out." I nodded as Melinda slowly undressed. First, she took off her shoes, then her stockings, her blouse slowly unbuttoned. She worked diligently on every button. Her blouse was off, and underneath, she was wearing a black lace bra that matched her panties. She actually gave a teaser by taking off her bra, first lowering the strap, then lifting it back up. Then the straps came down and stayed there. "I can't wait to see those panties, baby." I saw a wave of anxiety on her face. This only increased my excitement. I was ready for some trick of hers. She didn't let me down. She unzipped her skirt, bent down, and hooked her thumbs into the material. "Stop. Hey, who's having a dance here?" She was trying to joke, but I could hear the hard undertone underneath her tone. "Hey, I thought this was for my pleasure. I want to see those panties." "What's the matter with these panties, Tim? Come on. I'm horny. You're horny. I gave them to you for our anniversary last year, remember? They symbolize our marriage, our intimate connection. Come on, spoil me, take off your skirt, and show me these panties." Melinda let her skirt fall away, revealing no panties. She put her hands on her hips. Ta-da! I was temporarily stunned. I didn't expect this. Luckily, my body didn't give me away. Excitement at this moment would be a point for her. I was surprised how quickly I took the initiative again. "Where are the black panties? Put them on and start over." I asked to see my wife in black panties, not my wife looking like a perverted star. Perverted star? She lost her balance for a moment, and then her disrespect for me came to the fore. "I did it for you." "Who is speaking?" "Personally, I think it makes you look slutty." "Slutty?" Her eyes narrowed, and she turned red with anger. "Just put on your panties, please." I changed my tone to a more amiable one. "What is it with you and those damn panties?" She was losing her composure, and I couldn't feel in control anymore. "I like them. I like the way you look at them. Why is it so difficult for you to do one simple thing for me? Could you please put on some panties?" "I couldn't find them, Tim, okay?" She was furious with me. "They're probably in the wash. You always wash your clothes together, you have a bra. But where are your panties?" I wasn't going to let it go. "I told you I couldn't find them." She was angry, and I became calmer and calmer. "Hey, don't be mad at me. I'm just the guy who gave them to you and asked you to wear them for him." I shrugged, expressing innocence. "All you had to do was say something sooner. I wouldn't insist if you told me the truth. All you had to do was be truthful. What's so hard about that? So the last time you wore them was right before I remember my trip. because you looked so sexy in them when we were getting ready for bed. You took them off, hey, maybe they were kicked under the bed. Look, Tim, can we forget about these damn panties right now? The excitement left her face. I saw a glimmer of doubt in her eyes. Can't you just make love to me? Sure, no problem. Melinda breathed a sigh of relief. I'm not done with her yet. I think I remember where I bought them. Damn, they really meant a lot to me. Yes, Tim. There was caution in her voice. I see. She moved away from the bed, her desire clearly subsiding. The last time I saw you wearing them was here in this room. I climbed off the bed and knelt next to her, lifting the canopy. You took them off before we had sex, right? I think you were standing about here, remember? I remember, Tim. I stood here, took them off, and we had sex. But now I'm standing here. I don't have them on, and I think I'm developing a headache. I think I'm giving you a reprieve for the rest of the evening. Melinda began picking out her clothes. Wow, what's the problem? It's just panties, not that big of a deal. Melinda looked unhappy. Are we okay, Melinda? Is there something you want to tell me? I mean, it's been 2.5 weeks since we had sex, and I made a simple request, and now I'm out of favor. Why? You didn't just tell me you didn't know where your panties were. What's so hard about being honest with me? Why don't you try to hide something like that? I don't know. I didn't want to disappoint you. I know we haven't been together for a long time. We're both so busy with careers and family. I think I turned almost nothing into a big problem. I'm sorry. Me too. Well, how about we reschedule our date? Oh, look. I smiled as I pulled out my dirty panties and handed them to her. She took them, looked puzzled, scared for a moment, then confident. That's where they were? I thought I was looking there. I had to admit, she recovered quickly. Come on, put them on. They're dirty, Tim. I'll make sure you're the first to see them after I wash them. What happened next was a bravura display of lies and evasiveness. We were wrong about the dates and times we had sex. She even made a big deal out of realizing that I suspected her of seeing someone else. I was jealous without reason. The high point was that she thought it was cute that I suspected her of being a horny woman. I apologized endlessly for my jealousy and bad memory. I watched as a feeling of victory bloomed on her face. I'm sure she thought everything was fine. This was not the case. She was wrong. It was not nothing, and there was nothing nice about it. I knew it. My apologies dissolved in white-hot, silent anger. My anger led to a change in perception. I no longer doubted. I now knew that she was having sex with someone else. As far as I was concerned, our marriage was over. I knew, and soon she would know that I knew. When you are no longer in denial, you can learn a lot in a very short time. I was looking for hard evidence, basically. I wanted to catch her in the act, and I was willing to do whatever it took. It's amazing what you can do with modern GPS equipment. A bug on your own phones, a little digging on the computer, and a couple of digital voice recorders. All too soon I had a pretty clear picture. Who he was, what they did, how often, and most importantly, when they planned to meet next. Her lover was some guy named Ernie. They met 2 or 3 times a week, usually at a motel on the other side of town. It all sounded so routine when you listened to the tapes. The biggest surprise for me was the complete lack of guilt on her part. In recorded conversations, I was usually portrayed as simply someone to be factored into their schedule. That's all I was, a complication of their meetings. When I realized her absolute indifference and the depth of her disrespect for me, I went from vague thoughts about a possible reconciliation. She would really have to try to absolute revenge. She would pay. I wasn't going to fight for her. She was now the enemy. I was going to fight against her for everything. It's amazing what such clarity can do to you. I can even tell you exactly when I reached this turning point. This happened while listening to one side of a conversation, shortly after the panty incident. The voice recorder in her car recorded her side of the phone conversation between Melinda and her lover. Melinda, Suspicious. No more. Tim trusts me completely. You should see how much he tries to be nice to me. It's really very nice. Melinda, I just explained that the dirty underwear he found was because of him after we had sex. I said I had been looking for these panties for weeks. I thanked him for finding them under the washing machine. He believed without a second thought. Melinda, yeah, but he's my dumbass. Melinda, yes, I love it. Be patient, I'm almost there. Melinda, no, Ernie, I already told you. I love Tim. He is my husband. Melinda, yes, I love you too, but in a different way. Thank God I don't have to choose. I have the best of both worlds. The husband who makes love to me and the lover who sleeps with me. It's funny what you can think about when you don't care about the other person anymore. The bitch will pay, and a lot. My revenge was multifaceted. I wanted Melinda to suffer in both the short and long term. If all goes according to plan, Melinda will never forget her betrayal. I wasn't out to hurt Ernie as far as I was concerned. He was just an opportunistic jerk. If problems came to him, so be it. But with children, it was a different story. I wanted to protect them from the initial explosion of our family's disintegration. Besides, I wanted it all to fall on Melinda. I wanted her to see their sad faces and know that she was the only one to blame for this. In that sense, they actually set my deadlines. I waited until the school year was over and arranged for them to have a week-long soccer camp at a university, a couple of hours away from home. The camp operated from Monday to Friday. I dropped the kids off Monday morning and spoke with the camp directors. I explained that I had serious issues with their mother regarding fidelity. I told them I was going to file for divorce today or tomorrow, depending on when she gets home. I wanted to protect the children in the first days of pain. The directors were very sympathetic. Today, Tuesday, was the day of reckoning. Melinda was supposed to meet Ernie at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I spent that day putting all my affairs in order, prepared divorce papers, changed locks, dealt with bank accounts and credit cards. It was a day Melinda will never forget. I looked at my